Maintaining a healthy weight is very important for our overall health. Sounds simple, but it's not.
It takes consideration, motivation, and determination. On this week's Health Talk, we'll share our own personal stories about keeping fit. So stay tuned, we're up next. Hello, I'm Dr. Vicki Smetak.
And I'm Dr. Eric Mazer. Today we're going to have a very special show. We're going to discuss weight loss and our own personal experience with that with Dr. Neil Flock. He's with Fairfield County Bariatrics and Surgical Specialist. We're also with Susan Herson. She's a hospitalist specialist and at Norwalk Hospital, internist as well.
Thank you for joining us, and this is a very special health talk, as our viewers will find out, because we're here to have a very informal discussion about weight loss and ourselves, right? Because we all struggle with, or most of us in this country struggle with weight and finding time to exercise, and we figured if physicians can figure out a way to make it fit into busy schedules, then probably most people out there
and
can figure out a way to do it.
We have an expert on the show on weight loss itself. Neil Flock is a bariatric surgeon. You help to do weight loss surgery. We'll mention that, but we're really going to talk about the various options and how we've sort of done it. So, ladies first, Susan, you want to tell about, you look so thin, it's hard to believe you have ever had a problem with weight.
Well, certainly as a child I was thin and stayed thin throughout, probably through exercise, but college was tough. And it wasn't just the freshman 15. I would say 20, 25 pounds. Ask my brother.
25?
Yeah.
It's become that. I think it's no longer the freshman 10 or 15.
It was tough. The late night parties, the staying up late, snacking, stressing over tests.
A lot of calories in beer too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Alcohol in general.
Yes, absolutely. And staying up late and then going to sleep with full meal. So after school, I felt like it was time to get back into shape. I started Weight Watchers just for a healthy eating pattern. Mm-hmm. I read a few good books, and I just paid attention to physiologic hunger. And that's tough, to get away from emotional eating, to really pay attention to how hungry I am, and then to stop eating before I'm full.
So that sounds easy, right? You say it, and I think I can do that when I go home. But how did you train yourself to do that? Because I think that's the answer that everybody's looking for. How do you turn it off?
Right. So every time you get a trigger to eat, I would just ask myself, am I truly hungry or am I upset? Am I stressed out? Mm-hmm. And can I shut it off? And there are still times that I'm stressed, but I really try to make a healthy choice, particularly at those times where I know it's a challenge.
So even though you've been thin for many years, you still think about it every time you eat, that it still takes a certain effort and control?
It does. It always does, because I think we're inundated with advertisements, with fast food. It takes an effort to go to the supermarket to get something healthy. Actually, every morning now I prepare my lunches, and that's really helped keep in shape.
Now, I'm praying that my microphone is not too close to my stomach, because it's grumbling right now. So what Susan's talking about is kind of controlling your hunger and really, getting a mind over matter, because we sometimes
mind over mouth
think we should mind over mouth. So we think we should eat, or we think we're hungry, and are we physically hungry, or is it emotional hunger, and kind of working all that out. And I talk to my patients a lot about that every day, and how to deal with that. Now, my personal issue and how I got a little bit heavy was a story in of itself, but I had lost a lot of weight because I had a small illness and then recovered, and I was told to eat ice cream. So I ate a lot of ice cream and cake, and I gained 20 pounds. And the next thing I knew, I was at the cardiologist's office, and he said, my God, your glucose is high, your cholesterol is high, you got to start this fish oil, and you're getting metabolic syndrome.
Wow.
So I said, oh my God, what do I tell my patients?
So for a bariatric surgeon.
So here I am, a bariatric surgeon, and the other thing happened is, I'm on the web all the time, and one of my other colleagues who's a bariatric surgeon, I saw a picture of him on his website, and I said, oh my God, he's probably 80, 100 pounds overweight.
Wow.
What if I was a bariatric surgeon and I was overweight? So I said, this can't happen. I've got to change my ways. Let me just do what I tell my patients to do.
Yeah.
And what I did is I started to reduce my calorie intake, and you have to drastically reduce your calorie intake to well below the amount of calories that you slow down to. So let's say you're a man, you should probably eat about 1,800, 2,000 calories a day. Well, your body's going to slow down about 15%. So then you've got to come down to probably below about 1,800, 1,500 calories a day to lose anything. So you got to get below that, and you also have to change what you eat,
right?
Because we know a calorie is not just a calorie anymore.
I'm glad you said that, because we used to say that a calorie is a calorie, but it's not.
The carbohydrates, and
right.
I don't know if you all have experienced the same thing in what you eat. But
I purposely avoid carbs, and I think it was subconscious during internship. It was really to keep my energy up. I trained out of state, so I had 36-hour shifts in Maryland, and I had to keep up my energy, so I just avoided carbs because of the insulin surge.
The insulin spike after the carbohydrates
puts you right to
gives you more of an appetite too, doesn't it? I just find I'll eat a sugar donut. Not anymore, but eat a sugar donut, and I'm more hungry after I finish that donut than I was going into it.
Yes.
Well, I used to eat a bagel in the morning. I would go to the coffee shop, have my coffee, bagel and cream cheese, and then go off to the operating room. And then in the middle of the first case, I'd start to get a little, not dizzy, but a little lightheaded. I'd be like, what's that? I could never explain it. But once I stopped eating the bagel and the carb, because as you say, what happens, the bread drives your blood sugar up higher than even table sugar, which is sucrose. Okay, so the fructose that gets broken down into fructose drives your blood sugar way up high, and then boom, as the insulin kicks in, it goes very low, and you could get dizzy, and it's almost like the dumping that we see sometimes with bariatric patients.
Right.
So you really have to stay away from those carbs.
So what do you snack on, Susan? So we can't have bagels, we're not eating donuts. Clearly we're not eating cake anymore, Neil, and chocolate ice cream. So what are we snacking on?
I actually love wasabi peas. I make my own hummus. I have a really cute veggie blender now. It's very high speed blender. I have shakes a lot, almost every morning. That's my breakfast. And it's half veggie now instead of just a fruit shake, which is full of sugar, and probably give me a high and then let me down low again during the workday. I keep half veggie. I have pretzel chips, I guess, still a carb.
I think here's something where the high protein diets had something to say, is because they were giving you complex nutrients that require digestion and release those sugars into the circulation very slowly.
Yeah, and
I think the key is complex.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, it's got to be complex. We start talking about protein, and I talk about protein all day long. Protein, protein, protein. Well, if you eat just protein, you can't just eat protein.
Right.
And we've realized now, and a lot of the literature coming out is showing that fats are good. But unsaturated fats, for instance, avocado and nuts.
Mediterranean diet.
I have a lot of nuts. I have nuts in my pocketbook all the time.
Nuts are a great complex
almonds,
snack. They're so good
and that's fat. Those almonds are great.
But it's good fat.
Yeah.
And it's good. When I come home, I'll snack on the almonds or the cashews.
But you have to do portion control with that, because
you
can
can't
a lot of
calories. Keep picking at them.
What's that?
A lot of calories.
A lot of calories. So I don't remember exactly, but a half a cup has 160 calories. So I can eat a bottle of those things. I could put down 1,000 calories pretty easily.
Yeah.
But a cup would work quite well. But before we do, let's keep going around in the circle. Vicki, your weight loss story.
I've lost probably about 20 pounds in the past year and a half, and it was the same sort of thing, not so much health issues, but overall feeling of being tired and not having energy, and feeling like, is this it? So I had my 2 kids, and your body changes after you have kids, and is that it? Is it time to be fat now? And I wasn't okay with that, so something just clicked. The first thing I did, actually, and I was telling you, Neil, this before the show, I gave up chocolate. I was a huge addict for my whole life, dating back to infancy, probably, when I started drinking chocolate milk. I gave up chocolate 3 years ago on Valentine's Day. I remember the day because it was Valentine's Day, and I had eaten so many chocolates that day that I felt physically ill. And I said, okay, this is it. I'm done. And it was like a switch. So 3 years ago, this past Valentine's Day, and it made a huge difference. because once chocolate went away, then I stopped other sweets little by little. So the carbohydrates, the sweets, were my, Achilles heel.
And yet I don't deprive myself of all things, because I think a little piece of chocolate every now and then, it satisfies me. I don't need to have the whole box. And I feel like if I truly deprive myself for too long, then I might overeat. So to have a little of everything in moderation, for me, helps.
And you have to know yourself. And you sound like you're a lot more disciplined than I can be, because I knew that if even now, I'm afraid to. My kids will say to me, Mom, do you think you'll start eating chocolate again soon? And I tell them, honestly, I don't think I will. Because I don't think I can switch that off. I don't know, maybe that doesn't make sense for most people.
You can't control a food. If you can't control it, you got to stay away from it. If you can barely control it, like, you can't just have one cigarette. You can't just have one of whatever.
If you're an alcoholic, you can't just have one drink.
But you do have to eat. I mean,
you do have to eat.
That's the one thing about abstinence.
The difference is
you have to eat healthily.
And many of these great studies came out, and the first one was in the Journal of, I think it was Journal of Clinical Nutrition, but I may have it incorrectly. And what they did is they took patients, they did an MRI after they ate carbohydrates and sugar, and they saw that the area of the brain that lit up and was stimulated was the same area that when those people were taking cocaine or narcotics or addictive drugs.
A pleasure center.
So the pleasure center is hit by chocolate and carbs and these types of foods, whereas it's not with a steak or chicken, healthier food,
but that fills you for long. But that keeps you satisfied for longer.
Which really is very much relates to my personal experience, and that is, I was athletic and I still had always been active, but beginning about age 40, just started putting on 3, 4, 5 pounds a year, maybe a little bit more than that. We have some before pictures that crept up for about 20 years. And this is actually a picture of me 3 years ago on vacation, 3 years ago from now. And I was 55 pounds overweight over the deal with. The next picture, I think, is even more flattering. Shows sort of a dead-on view. I actually thought I looked fine in that picture at the time, so there's a good way to deny that. but my own personal, I knew that I was too heavy, and I was older. I was about 60 years old at that point, and actually had an experience at home where my speech got garbled for a few seconds. Turned out that I had no problem. It was all worked up, but it scared the daylights out of me. And it was probably a transient sleep phenomenon or a migraine equivalent. But that got my attention. And I walked in the next day. I remember the date. It was August 3rd, 2011. I said, I am not going to overeat. I'm going to take... And started exercising that day and lost 55 pounds over the space of 6 months without knee surgery. But it just shows you can do it, and you can do it when you're older, too. I used to think that because as you get older, your calorie requirement goes down. But
I think what you've done is absolutely amazing. And it really, to lose that much weight and to keep it off is a tremendous, difficult thing to do. And it's very unique. And when you get up to about 80 pounds, a study was done, statistically there's about a 5% chance that you can lose it and keep it off. And I don't think you were at that point, but you're pretty close.
That's close.
But you always meet people like this who can do it. And I think it takes...
But that's after 25 years of not being able to do it and trying. It's not like
but which is even more amazing.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about the tricks to maintain our weight, the role of exercise and health and all of that when we come back after this short break.
Saturday, fruit on Friday, double ball Thursday. Water Wednesday, touch your toes Tuesday. Let's move Monday, swap is next Sunday. 60 minutes of physical activity a day and eating well can help get your child healthy. So keep them active and eating well every day. Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov. That's letsmove.gov.
Oh, those boys are much too much. Those boys are much too much. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We're gonna beat them and bust them. Beat them.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
Let's get a little bit rowdy. R-O-W-D-Y.
Take time to be a
One
dad
more
today.
time. All those boys are much too much. Those boys.
Bring out the action hero in you. Fuel up right and get energized. Be part of the greatest action movie ever. The first movie that puts you in the action. Show us how you train and eat like an action hero. Join in at actionheroalliance.com.
The first 30 seconds are all I remember. My doctor told me I had cancer. When the shock was over, I met with a cancer specialist at Norwalk Hospital. We weighed all my options: surgery, radiation therapy, chemotherapy, even the latest clinical trials. Their Whittingham Cancer Centre offered me personalised care, hope and leading cancer physicians. And I know great care. Besides being a cancer survivor, I'm also an ICU nurse, and I chose Norwalk Hospital.
Hi, we're back with Dr. Neil Flock and Dr. Susan Herson. We're all talking about weight loss and how we've lost weight and now how we've maintained it. I mean, you deal with a lot of people who've lost weight, Neil. What are the number one, two, what are the big components of maintaining that weight? Because it is a battle.
Really? Well, you know, the surgery that we do, and we're dealing with people who are at least 80 pounds overweight, 100, 200, 250 pounds. And they really don't have the opportunity that we do to lose that much weight. So they need the surgery to help them. But in
The
order
surgery's
to,
not a panacea, though.
no, they'll regain the weight unless they do what we've done,
All the
which
diet
is
and exercise.
diet and
Right.
exercise. And that's what I think we can all contribute to this. So, you know, what I tell them to do is you got to reduce your calorie intake.
Right.
Cut down to 800 to 1,000 calories. Avoid carbohydrates. Eat good fats. Okay?
Just
And
said
do
it's a
some sort of exercise.
And as you say, it's a
exercise, right.
permanent lifestyle. You've got to fix your head, and that's what I found is that
Yeah.
I was one of the, you described it, I ate to celebrate, I ate when I was tense. I loved eating. My family loved eating. It's part of our culture.
Everybody
I still
loves
love
Everybody
eating.
loves
Love eating. I still love nothing more than a good restaurant. But you can't eat like that all the time, and you have to eat differently.
And for me, I couldn't say that I would have the same calories every day because honestly, I had a hungry day and I had a not hungry day, and I couldn't beat myself up for being hungry or eating a little bit more
Right.
I'm
one
with
day
you,
versus
Susan.
the
I
other.
But
I
it
do the
can't
same
be.
thing.
What I used to say when I lost all that weight, people said, "Oh, what diet did you use?" And
Yeah.
And it's not a diet.
And it's not a diet.
not.
It is a permanent change in the way you live.
Yeah.
And if you think it's a diet, you're going to go off the diet and you're going to gain the weight right back.
And you average it out over, like you were saying,
Yes.
if you have a day when you're
It
hungrier
averages.
and you have another day when you're not so hungry,
And-
or you curtail your cravings, and so over a week's time, you average out,
Exactly.
1,000 or whatever.
And for
many
women
calories.
and for people with hormones, and I think you have to
We all
cut
have
yourself some slack and not beat ourselves up because it is an
Certain
average
time of
over
the month.
time. So for me, I think spending the extra time getting the healthier food, eating healthier and absolutely exercising.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I enjoy exercising. It's hard to get to the gym, and the first 10 or 15 minutes of any workout is painful. But after that 10 or 15 minutes, I really know that I'm doing something good for myself.
Well, we have a video of Vicky, actually,
That's how
because
I
that's been a
feel.
big part of your
It has.
weight loss regimen, and maybe we can bring that up and you can talk a little bit about it. What finally prompted you to start exercising?
I think again
I shouldn't
it
say
was-
that. Maybe you always exercised.
I
but
have exercised actually for many years, but I found out when I started going to the gym and incorporating more weight training into my workouts that I was going about it the wrong way, and I was struggling because I was running. I was running 5 miles, 6 miles. I had brought myself up to a pretty high number of miles for me at least. But I wasn't losing weight, and I still was eating more carbs probably than I should have
Right.
been. So once I started doing what you're seeing here is a lot of TRX work, using your own body weight against itself to kind of pull yourself up and do different maneuvers. And when I started doing these workouts, and I
So
kept
the
my
workout
running.
gets easier as you lose weight because your body
It
weight
does,
goes down.
because you weigh less. Yeah. I still keep my running because it clears my head, like you said, Susan. It makes me feel good, so I love doing that. But I do all the strength training as well, as you're seeing here. These are called, if I remember correctly, Bulgarian lunges or something like that. I don't know the names of all the exercises, I will admit to you, but I did start working out at a gym where you train with a trainer for 1 or 2 sessions a week.
Well, that gives you some of the discipline, though,
and it
too,
gives you the
doesn't it?
discipline. So I know that on Wednesday morning, for example, at 7 o'clock, I'm at the gym and it's on my calendar. So in order to deviate for that, there has to be a real
You look
issue.
like a dog with one of those rollers that you...
Vicki,
Yeah.
you said that you ate a lot of carbs before you used to go running. Did you control, now that you're working out, do you control your calorie intake or your carbohydrate intake?
I do. So the diet modification came along with the workouts, and I've learned a tremendous amount, both from the folks that I work with at the gym and also from nutritionists that I had consulted, to see that the things that I was putting into my body weren't being helpful. So it wasn't donuts, it was a bagel, but a bagel isn't any better than a donut in many ways.
Right.
So I took out carbs to a large extent.
I know a lot of people will work out and then they're hungry and they replace all their calories. So they get stronger, they get more fit, they feel better, but they don't lose any weight. And there are a lot of athletes and pro athletes work out all the time, but they're still heavy.
Yeah.
You also
So
see
it's important to
athletes
control
who,
your calorie intake.
But professional athletes who retire, and then especially with some of the football players, and
Sure.
they blow
Yes,
up because that. And I know that the studies have shown that exercise is very, very helpful in maintaining weight loss. Not
I
as
think it's actually more important than controlling the calories in terms of maintenance. I could be wrong, but the exercise was the more important maintenance.
I think everything is important and it all contributes and it has to work together, but exercise is extremely important.
Yeah,
One
you
thing
can't do it without exercise, I don't think.
One thing I've found, though, is that the difference between being fat and thin is not eating 3 times as many calories as your thin counterpart. It's a few hundred calories difference a day.
Yeah.
And that few hundred calories is an hour, 30 minutes of exercise.
Or just taking the stairs all day, and that's what I do when I can't make it to the gym. We see each other coming up from the parking garage. We have
part of
4
my
flights.
transformation is I do
Mandatory.
not use the elevator. My office is on the 5th floor. I walk those stairs several times a day because it's free exercise.
I walk my dog, or I should say I run with my dog. So we got a dog this past year. I've never had a dog before, and now it's a perfect excuse
And by the way,
the
you
dog
should
has
put
to
in a
run.
pitch for exercise. It's
The dog
not
stays
just.
healthy.
The dog stays healthy, and I get my run in every couple
I
of
want to put in
days.
a pitch for exercise from other aspects. It's not just good for the way you look or your vanity.
Oh, no.
It reduces your risk of diabetes. It reduces your risk of heart attack. It reduces your risk of stroke. Reduces your risk of cancer. Reduces your risk of Alzheimer's. All the diseases that we die of, you can reduce your risk of that. And particularly as you get older, like I am, it maintains your functionality.
And I wonder if that's tied to better sleep and lower stress, because a lot of those diseases are related to not good quality sleep and having a high stressful life, which causes inflammation down the road, inflammation of the vessels.
Maybe we've got less than a minute left, but the connection between sleep and eating is now being increasingly understood. Maybe we could ask one of our expert here about
Well,
that.
you know, the obvious thing is sleep apnea, and you know, patients who do have sleep apnea, when they get heavy, that's you know, a horrendous problem to have, and it improves with weight loss. There are some studies to show that relationship. That's not my expertise per se, but you know, when you don't have energy, you eat more. And people who don't sleep well, they're looking for more energy, and they tend to consume.
And the hormone levels tend to reflect
That's
that
right.
too, the ghrelin.
Cortisol and
Anyway,
So it
we're going to
becomes
come
a
back and
vicious
answer
cycle.
a health question. We could go on like this for hours. I guess we're all very enthusiastic about this topic, which is really important to everybody at home.
Absolutely.
But we're going to have to come back and we'll answer the health question after this break.
Right now, let's take a look at some of our upcoming events sponsored by Norwalk Hospital.
first 30 seconds are all I remember. My doctor told me I had cancer. When the shock was over, I met with a cancer specialist at Norwalk Hospital. We weighed all my options: surgery, radiation therapy, chemotherapy, even the latest clinical trials. Their Whittingham Cancer Centre offered me personalised care, hope and leading cancer physicians. And I know great care. Besides being a cancer survivor, I'm also an ICU nurse, and I chose Norwalk Hospital.
Nice. No! Oops. Yeah, sure. Let's go.
Moms everywhere are finding ways to keep kids active and healthy.
Works every time.
Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov.
Mom, can I have $1?
Yeah, it's right. I think my purse is upstairs on the bed.
It's not here.
Check the dining room.
No.
What about your sister's room?
It's not there either.
The upstairs closet? The downstairs closet?
There are no more closets.
Moms everywhere are finding ways to keep kids active and healthy. Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov.
This week's viewer question is, we are hearing more about gluten-free diets. What is the purpose of these diets? So we can continue our discussion on nutrition with the focus on gluten. What do we think about gluten?
Why are we hearing so much about gluten now?
There are two things. There are two distinct problems here, and one is celiac disease, which is a genetic disease, and it affects your bowel and destroys the lining of the bowel. And those patients cannot eat gluten because they get sick. And
So this is a reaction.
They can get cancer if they don't eat the correct food. So that's one entity. Now there's another entity, gluten sensitivity. Okay, and patients are very sensitive to gluten, and that gluten, that's a molecule in the wheat and other grains. Okay, and it actually causes the stickiness of bread and causes it to accumulate. So people are sensitive to it, but they don't have the disease. Now there's a whole fad not to eat gluten.
For anyone, right? I mean, it's recommended, I think, for most people not to have gluten in their diets, from what I've been hearing.
I think that's the area of controversy, is that clearly if you have celiac disease, you shouldn't eat gluten. If you have gluten sensitivity, you're best staying away from gluten. I think for the healthy I just saw a paper that there's not a lot of evidence that avoiding gluten does or doesn't do any good for you.
It depends. There's a whole book written about it called Grain Brain, which is wonderful and talks about maybe possibility of Alzheimer's being related to it as well. So there are several books coming out about gluten and many papers, and we're learning more and more about it. But as a weight loss tool, I don't think it necessarily is the best way to go. I mean, I think it can be healthier, but certain people are sensitive to it and need to stay off it.
I think losing weight, you have to avoid the extremes. You have fad diets, you have extreme diets. I think we should be kind to ourselves. I think we should have things in moderation. And that's the way to sustain for life, not just a 10-year fad of the caveman diet or the all-protein diet. I think you have to pay attention to your body. If you're gluten sensitive, certainly avoid it. If you feel hungry, eat. If you feel like having exercise, you should exercise. I think we should
If you don't feel like exercise, you should exercise.
You should still exercise.
You should exercise anyway.
I think Susan, you summed it up very nicely.
Great way to end up the show. I think it shows that, yes, you're not dieting. You've got to change your eating habits so you can be that way for the rest of your life, because that's how you're going to maintain it. So if you at home have a question you'd like to ask us on Health Talk, please contact us at healthtalk@norwalkhealth.org.
We would like to thank our guests today, Dr. Neil Flock and Dr. Susan Herson, for coming on our show and sharing their personal stories.
Vicki and I will see you next week on Health Talk. Bye-bye.